Good afternoon folks, welcome to Visordown and welcome to the Ascari circuit in southern Spain for the launch of Triumph's new Speed Triple 1200 RR. So it wasn't long ago that the Speed Triple 1200 RS was released, and Triumph actually quite quickly followed it up with this bike, which has been designed at exactly the same time. Basically, the development process of both bikes was coming through the workflow at exactly the same point in time. Is it a sports bike? Is it the ultimate cafe racer for the road and track? I don't know, it's a bit of a combination of the two. You've got the power of a sports bike from a few years ago, you've got the price tag which is under some of the more high-end sports bikes on the market at the moment, and you've got top-class suspension courtesy of Öhlins, but a little bit more on that in a little while. So high level overview really, this is 17,950 in the shops, but not this version you can see. That is the white bike that you can probably look at on the screen now. This one, the red hopper, is an extra 250 quid on top of that. It's a little bit more than the standard 1200 RS, but as I go through this review you will realise that there is quite a lot that this bike has to offer that you don't get with the Speed Triple 1200 RS. Straight into the engine, massively updated for this year. It's basically a ground up rebuild. There are no new parts, any carryover parts from the previous generation Speed Triple. It is a totally new beast. We've got a quoted power output of 180 PS and 125 Newton meters of torque, and as it's a Triumph Triple, it's got that torque dolloped all over the rev range. We've had two bites of the cherry with this launch. We had a road ride earlier on the Ronda road in Spain, just north of Malaga, leading up to the Ascari circuit. It was a really good mix of sort of fast, sweeping sort of mountain roads and also some tighter, twistier sort of switchbacks and hairpins and so on and so forth. It's still got all the tractability and rideability of the previous generation Speed Triple. It's just got this little bit extra. There's this little bit more of a fun zone when you go really up the rev range, and it just opens up its throat and it just absolutely sings. The engine does now. It's a lot of fun to ride, I will say, and that goes for both the RS and the RR. Going to talk about the chassis and the handling of it. So really the biggest, for people who really like to ride their bikes and do the occasional track day and like to sort of push the limits on the road, the main thing that this bike has over the standard Speed Triple 1200 RS is it's got this Öhlins Smart EC 2.0 electronically adjusted and semi-active suspension. It is the best kit on the market. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. There isn't really any semi-active suspension that can touch what the Öhlins system does. You don't have to know a thing about rebound damping rates, compression rates, preload, any of that stuff. You just tell the bike where you want the support. So whether you want it under braking, whether you want it coming out of the corner, whether you want it sort of mid-corner, and it will tailor the bike to how it thinks you want it to be. And I've got to say, it does always get it right. I did a session earlier on and I turned all of the electronics off, and just like when I was riding the Fireblade at Qatar a couple of years ago now, I didn't like it at all. I prefer to have the electronics in there just doing its thing and helping the bike to feel more comfortable on the track and the road. Another big change while we're talking about the handling is the riding position of this bike. So obviously it's got a sportier riding position. So the bars are 135 millimeters lower than they are on the Speed Triple RS. They are also 50 mil further forward. The pegs are now sort of further back. They're a little bit higher, and they're also, importantly for riding on track, 5 mil wider, which gives you that little bit more leverage on the peg if you do steer the bike on the pegs in the corners. I'm going to say straight off, if this was a sports bike, it would be the most comfortable sports bike that I think I've ever ridden. The riding position is absolutely beautiful. It allows you to just get right on the pace on track, but it's not so sporty like an R1 or a Fireblade or anything like that, nowhere near that you feel uncomfortable on it. It just feels like, for me, it absolutely fits me spot on. I've had an absolute blast on it, and it's been a joy to ride. We didn't do massive amounts of miles earlier on it on the road, but when you sit on a bike and you ride it for 30 or 40 miles, you know whether you're going to be getting aches and pains further along the day. And it doesn't feel like this at all. I mean, Triumph could effectively sling a full fairing on this with a bit more weather protection and turn it into a big Sprint GT. It is that comfortable. Just going to go through the equipment of the bike. So we've got the same TFT, bonded TFT dash that you get on the new Speed Triple. The one thing that I will say about this, and I never noticed it with the RS, is you do get a bit of flare, a bit of glare off the screen when the sun was quite low in the sky. It's not a massive problem, but the screen isn't adjustable, so you really can't do much about that. So what do we like about the Speed Triple 1200 RR? I really like the way that you can just get on it and you can just ride fast, and just like the old Speed Triple 1050, you could just jump on the thing and get on the pace, and you didn't have to have any acclimatization time whatsoever. It's still exactly the same with this bike here. It is fabulous. The riding position is pitch perfect. I think Triumph have really nailed it. The fact that it's a British designed bike also helps, because it means it's kind of built for normal sized people, not the kind of the racing test riders that some of the Japanese companies use, where you get on the bike and it is kind of a little bit too tight for most people. And the final thing that I really loved was this thing is running the latest V3 Pirelli Diablo Supercorsa SPs, and it has been properly cold today, like down to the freezing point. We've been riding on the road and they've not given us any problems or issues whatsoever. What don't we like? A couple of times on track it was dropping out of second gear. That was really a little bit unnerving, but that said, the bikes are completely brand new, and all they've done since they were built is be spanked around a racetrack and then handed to a load of journalists, so it could be that. The only other thing that I could really fault with this bike is the mirrors are only really very good if you like looking at your elbows. You cannot see anything else in them, and it doesn't matter what position you put them in, which is a shame because they don't vibrate or bounce around, which is quite unusual for a sports bike. So there we have it, the verdict. It's in a bit of a weird place in the market. There isn't really anything with 180 bhp that's less than 20 grand, that's got the Öhlins electronically damped suspension, that is kind of dressed up in this retro cafe racer style. I think Triumph have tried to carve a little niche in the market using the Speed Triple RS as the general platform for it. Give it some juicy bits, make it look pretty, and I do think they are going to walk out of showrooms. So if you are looking to get one, get yourself down to your local dealer soon. They are going to be in showrooms in mid-February. I'm going to say thanks to Triumph for having me along. It's been a blast. This Ascari circuit is quite tricky to learn and quite cold, but it is really good fun once you get to know it. So I've been Toad for Visordown. Thanks very much.